NC State hosting unbeaten Georgia Tech 3 minutes ago in the third. Wolfpack up 8. C.J. Bailey drops back, evades the rush. He's one up to a wide open Teddy Hoffman, and he takes it the rest of the way for a 55-yard touchdown. NC State wins it 48-36. The Yellow Jackets are unbeaten no more. With that, we bring in former Ohio State running back Beanie Wells and former Cowboys QB Ben DiNucci for winners and losers. And y'all, let me tell you, I did not expect to be talking about Georgia Tech as a loser on this night. I mean, an offensive, explosive night, right, between these two teams. But Ben, I'll start with you. How shocking is this loss for this Haynes King-led team?
I think it's pretty shocking considering everything that Georgia Tech had in front of them, right? They're in uncharted territories. The program's excited. Everyone's excited. I want to go to the other side of the ball. I want to highlight C.J. Bailey, this NC State quarterback. 340 yards tonight, 2 touchdowns, led that offense to 583 yards. The Georgia Tech defense has been stout all year. Very uncharacteristic game from them today. Unbelievable game plan from NC State. Way to steal one.
Yeah, typically when you talk about, Georgia Tech and Brent Key and his Brent Key teams, you got to get a disciplined team, a team that, is stout on the defensive side, that's stout in the trenches. And today they gave 243 yards rushing to Jaden Scott. That's not a typical Georgia Tech performance. And today it wasn't for a lack of production on the offensive end from them. It was their defense, which usually is a team that shows up on a consistent basis. And today, for whatever reason, they couldn't get it done.
Yeah, still have a great shot to win the ACC. That big test looming against number 5 Georgia. Of course, they face your former team, Pittsburgh. We'll see what they do over there. But then also, you get the Miami Hurricanes. I mean, they showed us why, Beanie, that the U is not back. Listen, last year, it was the defense that was the problem, right? This year, the offense, they put up 20 points against SMU. They're double-digit favorites, by the way. And Carson Beck throws 2 interceptions. I know the first one wasn't on him, the second one debatable, but just how do you explain what we're seeing from Miami once again, where they kind of fool us?
They're an inconsistent team in critical moments. And I think there was a stat that came out that talked about Mario Cristobal and his teams, since he's been coaching at Miami, in the month of November, are 4-11. For whatever reason, as you get down the stretch where you're a team that's supposed to separate yourselves, they don't. They end up disappearing and faltering back to the old style of Miami football. And Carson Beck has to play clean football and take care of the ball in critical moments. And in these 2 games that they lost, he wasn't able to get it done. But today, I think this game went more to the penalties. 12 penalties for 96 yards in the most critical moments. You're in a situation to where you're about to close out the game, and within a minute, you get a roughing the passer situation, putting SMU in a position to go kick a field goal to force overtime. All of those things are being undisciplined in terms of, one, taking care of the ball and getting penalties when you're not supposed to be doing it.
This is a bad loss for this Miami team. It was just a couple weeks ago where we were talking about this might be the best team in the country, right? Offense, Carson Beck was playing really well. Defense flying around. You got Mario Cristobal leading these guys. The reality is, bad loss, and unfortunately that's kind of been their calling card the last couple years, not being able to finish in the month of November when it matters most. They let one slip here to a good SMU team at home. Tough conference game. Sometimes it happens, but for Miami, got to clean it up. Carson Beck, a couple turnovers hurt you today.
Yeah, they hurt him, and Mario Cristobal has to go back to the drawing board and make sure this team doesn't experience any type of carryover for the rest of the season so they can still obtain anything that they want. But the college football playoff, that might not be in their cards for this year. Now, how about number 9, Vanderbilt? Okay, I know they weren't favored in this game against Texas, but almost made a 24-point comeback win against number 20 Texas. Falls short right after the onside kick fails. Should we expect this from Vandy, Beanie?
Yeah, I certainly didn't expect to lose in the fashion in which they did, but nonetheless, coming back, scoring 21 points in the fourth quarter, yes, I think we should expect that because Diego Pavia has been nothing but magic since he's got there in Vanderbilt. He's done some phenomenal things for this team. This game, though, it came down in the first half of it, in my opinion, in tackling situations. They were not tackling the Texas wide receivers, giving those guys opportunities to extend plays and score points by just simply not wrapping up. So this is a game I thought they could have won had they cleaned up some of that stuff in the first half, but they certainly made an extravagant comeback in the fourth quarter to make this look like a completely different game because it got out of hand, but Diego Pavia and his football team got it together and rallied back to fight in this football game. And I think it's going to bode well for them in the eyes of the committee when we talk about placing teams in the college football playoff and voting situations.
I want to highlight how well this Texas offense looked today against a Vanderbilt defense that's been this team's calling card the last couple weeks. Texas on offense, 7 of 11 on third down, 430 yards. Arch had probably the best game of his career today, 330 yards, 3 touchdowns. Really, really smooth, efficient. Offense was hitting explosive plays. The first play of the game, threw a little bubble screen out there, took it to the house. So I was impressed with Texas today. A big win for them. But for Vanderbilt, kind of a letdown after a couple big wins for them the last couple weeks.
Yeah, very much so, but they are still very impressive. You love the fight that they showed. Diego Pavia really anchoring that squad. But listen, they had 7 sacks, right, through weeks 1 through 8. They had 6 on this night, okay? So that shows you just the type of pressure that Texas was getting. Meanwhile, back to the ACC. Clemson's nightmare of a season continues, right? They lose to Duke 46-45. There was a horrible defensive pass interference called, right, on Avery and Terrell. However, as Dabo Swinney pointed out post-game, you can't let it get to that point where the officials decide the game. So, Ben, we've been accustomed to Clemson being the cream of the crop. To fall 3-5 with all the talent they have, how do you explain that?
I don't really think you can explain it. Beginning of the year, all the talk was about Dabo Swinney, Cade Klubnik coming back again, this offense having some firepower. They stumbled early and often out the gates. The offense wasn't the problem today. They had 45 points, but the defense just kind of let them down. And unfortunately, at this point of the year, when you start getting into October, November, the good teams find ways to win. Clemson hasn't been able to do that this year. They fall to 3-5. Dabo was brutally honest after the game, saying, I might not even make it out of this interview, so he might be feeling the heat a little bit. But another one that, Clemson feels like they could have won, the interference at the end of the game. Ball doesn't necessarily roll their way, but way to Duke to steal one here.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, when you look at this Clemson team, like you said, at the beginning of the year, we thought Clemson was going to be one of those teams that we're going to be in a discussion for a national championship. Getting Cade Klubnik back, one of the top quarterbacks coming back this year in college football, and they just the wheels come falling off very quickly for the football team. You saw it started to happen after they lost to Syracuse. And then the season just went up and down and up and down. And I thought Dabo was getting them back on track, but for whatever reason, this team just isn't buying into whatever he's preaching.
Right, because you saw him yelling on the sidelines there, I think, in the first or second half, whatever it was, and the defense did not respond, right?
They zoned out.
Yeah,
completely.
they were not checked in, and that shows you maybe he's losing his fastball. As great of a coach he is, sometimes the game gets past you, right? And you have to move on to somebody else. Although I don't think Clemson's going to be in a hurry to do that based on the success that Dabo has had at Clemson. Now, how about Oklahoma, Tennessee? Okay, Tennessee or Oklahoma doesn't score a touchdown until late in the third quarter, right? John Mateer, not sure if he's still 100%. He was great on the ground. What did you see from him, Ben, as he continues to navigate through this injury, whatever he's dealing with, to make sure Oklahoma came away with the W against Tennessee?
Yeah, look, as a quarterback, anytime you hurt your right hand, let alone beginning of the season, during the season, whatever it is, it's going to take some time for him to come back. And over these last couple weeks, I think you've seen him get a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more comfortable. And today, in the second half, you saw Oklahoma do a really good job using his legs, creating some uneven boxes, getting an extra hat in the running game. I thought it was actually interesting because Oklahoma didn't actually enter the red zone until late in the third quarter in this game. You saw the fourth quarter had some offensive fireworks, but for a good part of 3 quarters, there were turnovers, penalties, what have you, but Oklahoma found a way to win this game late. John Mateer's legs were the difference, and I think he's getting a lot more comfortable over these last couple weeks.
You certainly have to love everything that you saw from the Oklahoma, especially on the offensive end. And the more important place, the trenches. The Devils is always going to be in the details. 192 rushing yards to 63 rushing yards for Tennessee. They were not able to get it done in the trenches. And running the football does a lot of different things. One, it wears out that opposing team's defensive line, and then it allows you to sustain drives. They were able to do that, and John Mateer today being a +1 in the run game was so critical for Oklahoma, and the ability for them on the defensive side to force Tennessee 3 turnovers.
Yeah.
That was critical.
Right, flying around.
Defense was definitely getting pressure.
Yep.
I mean, that's what we expect, right, from a Brent Venables defense. They are going to be coming after you, and that's what they did on this night against Tennessee. Now, you mentioned how high you were on Texas Arch Manning. I mean, the Mississippi State game was one thing, right, because Mississippi State had not won an SEC game, and he handled them last year as a starter when Quinn Ewers was out. But to do it against Vanderbilt, right, and just the the comfortability, Ben, that he has. What are you noticing differently that he didn't show early in the season?
Well, I'll highlight a critical stat today that I think was the main difference. A lot of the talk over the last couple weeks has been this offensive line, right? No sacks today on Arch Manning for the first time since September 13th versus UTEP. When you give him a clean pocket, room to operate, he did a really, really good job today. He was efficient, spread the ball around, protected the ball. I've been impressed. He's young. It's going to take some time. Everybody wanted to paint him as this, paint him in that. Coming into the season, Arch has done a really good job settling down these last few weeks and playing his best ball. Yeah,
it's been special to watch. He's coming into his own form, and I'm sure he's going to end up becoming one of the better QBs in college football when it's all said and done. Beanie Wells, Ben DiNucci, appreciate it. And for more college football content, check out the College Football Insiders podcast, where a powerhouse team of reporters deliver the stories behind the headlines. They bring you the full picture, not just a tweet.